The identity of this Trials boss is a major story spoiler for the entire game. As such, this is a spoiler warning. Do not watch this video if you haven't reached this part of the game yet. You've been warned. Hello and welcome to this updated video guide for completing the Dark Inside in Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. My name's Theus, and in this video you'll learn everything you need to know to stop Zodiac. Wait, what? This is the first trial in Endwalker, right? We're on Zodiac already? Each individual mechanic here is pretty easy, save one, but this fight overlaps mechanics a lot. That said, it's not too hard overall, so let's take a look. Zodiac always occupies the northern edge of the room, so as to tank, pull the boss and poke him with your pointy ends. Zodiac will almost immediately cast Cocytus. I did do that one quite well. That was pretty good actually. Alright, we'll try that again. Zodiac will almost immediately cast Cocytus, reducing everyone to 1 HP. Just stack up to allow AoE healing. Quickly following this will be a purple Exoterikos, cast to your right. This spell summons an arcane sigil of the same colour, which will cast a room-length cone attack from itself before vanishing. As you saw in the video, just move close and to the side of the purple portal to avoid. As well as being purple, the arcane sigil also has a big triangle displayed on it, which will better help you identify which attack to expect. More on this in a moment. Generally, between every mechanic you should head back to the middle of the room, and as a note for off-tanks, there is nothing for you to do in this fight, so just be a DPS. For the main tank, do note that the Tank Buster Anya hits as an AoE a very short range around you. Try to ensure you don't clip anyone with this when eating them, and other players be sure not to learn this the hard way like I did. We'll now be introduced to the other version of Exoterikos in the form of a pink square-shaped arcane sigil. Instead of a room-length cone attack, this version casts an AoE that hits the entire half of the room it appears next to. This fight will throw a lot of arcane sigils at you in combination with other mechanics, so it's well worth remembering that the purple triangle ones will cone AoE and the pink square ones will do a half-room one instead. The next moves we'll see will be both versions of Paradigma. The first cast will take the form of 2 neon pink behemoths. After a short time, they will each explode in a large circle AoE. Just move away from them to avoid. The second cast will take the form of 2 blue pythons. These will each do a room-length line AoE in front of them. Note that the pythons will always spawn with one being on the very edge of the room and the other being 1 room quarter away, meaning one edge of the map will always not have an AoE, which is useful information later. The final moves in this phase will include Phlegethon, which will place AoEs under 4 random players 3 times in a row. Just spread out and keep moving to avoid overlapping hits. We'll also see Styx, which is a mega stack-up marker. This differs from regular stack-up markers in that you must remain stacked up until every hit of the attack has finished landing. Just group up and wait for the laser show to end. Now that we've seen all of the basic mechanics individually, Zodiac will start to overlap them. However, it won't be long before Fandaniel asserts complete control, triggering a cutscene to take us into Phase 2. As well as keeping all of the previous mechanics, this phase obviously introduces a number of new ones, but the first one we'll get can be quite mind-bending, meaning it's once again time for
Learning with Tom. That's me!
In today's episode, we're going to avoid Astral Flow. For this attack, one version of Paradigma will appear, and you'll see large arrows rotating around the map, all pointing in one direction. At this point, you'll have a short moment to position yourself before Zodiac rotates the entire floor and AoEs by 1 room turn in the direction of the arrows. What's crucial to remember is that the players themselves do not move and are instead locked in place. If you positioned poorly, you may find yourself dropped into an AoE and given a mighty good bonk on the head. This throws a lot of people out of whack, so let's take a look at the 4 main patterns and how to avoid them, starting with the behemoths. The behemoths will either spawn diagonally like this, or next to one another like that. Note that the orientation will be random. Let's say for the sake of simplicity that all of these will rotate to the right. In the diagonal type of setup, it doesn't matter which way the rotation happens, the safe place to stand will always be on one of the behemoths. When the 2 behemoths are next to one another, it's also pretty easy to work out because they will occupy 1/2 of the room, so you just need to rotate the AoEs in your head 1 turn. If you're lucky, you might even start in the 1/4 of the room where you don't need to bother moving at all. Let's take a look at one of these for real. The behemoths spawn together on the right side of the room. The arrows appear showing a rotation to the right, so I move up. The platform rotates and we all avoid the hit. It's worth noting that the camera only zooms out like this for the first astral flow. Subsequent flows will not move your camera, and despite chaining you in place, subsequent flows won't actually prevent you from attacking the boss. FYI. For the pythons, it's a little bit harder. These will either come as line AoEs towards the boss or line AoEs across the sides of the room. As I said earlier, these patterns will always have one edge of the room free of AoE. I find it much easier to focus on this safe side and rotate it in my head. Is this safe side going to move to the left or to the right? Of course, it's possible to avoid these patterns using the inner safe spot, but I wouldn't recommend that until you've practiced a little, even if it means dropping DPS for a moment if you're forced to distance yourself from the boss. Let's take a look at one of these for real. Pythons appear with line AoEs towards the boss. I can see the arrows display a rotation to the left. As I can see that the safe edge is on the far left, that will rotate to the back edge of the room, so I wait there, and as a ranged class I can continue to attack the boss from this distance. The room rotates, and I remain safe. If you're interested, hang around after the end of the guide and I'll throw random combinations of these at you with the real time constraints. You can use these to practice a little if you feel like this attack might melt your brain. Moving on to other mechanics now, Adikya causes the boss to slam both fists onto the floor, resulting in 2 massive circle AoEs. Just move into the center front or center back to avoid the hits. Note that later in the fight he likes to cast these after a square exoterikos, which further limits the safe area. Another mechanic to keep on high alert for is Triple Esoteric Ray. This appears as 3 large neon green sigils in front of the boss. Pay extra attention to note that either the middle one will appear first, followed by the 2 on the edges, or in reverse, with the edge sigils appearing, followed by the one in the middle. After these sigils have finished casting, they will blast everyone standing in front of them. The way to avoid this is to spot which one appeared first, stand to the side, and as soon as the laser blasts, move into the now safe area. Final point on this is to watch out for the first appearance of these green lasers, because Zodiac will very likely follow it with Algeddon. For this move he will jump to the room corner on his left or right, and shortly afterwards yeet everyone in a massive line AoE in front of him. This is an instant kill move that knocks you off of the arena, however your body will get brought back on after a short time. It's easy to see this move coming if you're watching the boss, so just quickly run to either of the corners not directly in front of him. And of course keep an eye out for Algeddon reappearing randomly over the fight. The final noteworthy attack to cover is Astral Eclipse. Zodiac will fly off to his right and go a full circle around the map. At each of the 3 sides he passes, a simple star constellation will appear in the distance. These stars will then hit the platform in the same pattern and order. The orientation of these AoEs is according to each side of the room, so let's see some graphics. For example, if the constellation in the sky looks like this and you're facing towards it, it'll hit the platform like so. Fortunately, the first constellation always seems to be this sideways Z shape, meaning you can always avoid the first hit by moving into the northwestern corner. The other 2 constellation patterns are this one that hits all 4 corners and this one that's a plus shaped pattern. Basically this means that if you always head into the northwestern corner, if the second pattern is a plus, you can stay where you are and move into the middle for the 3rd hit. And if the second pattern is to corners, just move into the middle and then back to your corner. Let's see this for real. Zodiac flies off and I immediately start heading to the northwestern corner. I spin my camera to look at the 2nd and 3rd constellations and see that with the plus shape being second, I won't need to move for 2 hits in a row. I go back on the boss and after the first 2 hits land, I move into the middle to avoid the corner hit. Easy. Lastly, when the boss is nearly dead, he will cast Trimorphous Exoterikos, which is basically just 1 random Exoterikos at each of the 3 empty sides of the room. Which 3 you get is totally random, but this is quite easy to avoid in general. Pop a Limmy during the last 10% and GG. And that's the Dark Inside. If you've enjoyed the guide, then let me know, and if there are any other guides or perspectives you'd like to see, then check out my channel or feel free to ask me to create one. Thank you for watching, and good luck. Hey, so welcome to Astral Flow Training Camp! I'm going to show you a map like this, then mark a random paradigm pattern on it. First I'll spawn the animals, then the AoE patterns, and finally the turn direction, all with the exact time delays used in the game. Put your finger on the screen to represent where you're going to run, and once time is up, I will rotate the room. Assuming you don't move your finger, if you end up touching a safe spot, you win. Ready? Here we go. And that's the training camp. Hopefully it was useful, and while less effective the second time round, you can always rewind and try again. Go get 'em, Tiger.